Welcome to the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Saturday, August 4th. This is Gina McGuire. We will continue to see strong winds across Nevada and expand further south and east into much of the state of Nevada, parts of the Arizona Strip, and western Utah. Winds will be increasing in strength from what we saw yesterday across western Nevada, with gusts likely above 45 miles per hour and single-digit relative humidity, which will really increase fire potential on certainly existing incidents, but any new starts as well. Later tonight, we will start to see thunderstorms develop possibly over southwest Idaho and continue during the overnight hours into early Sunday morning into the central Idaho mountains, and then redevelop in the afternoon on Sunday in the central Idaho mountains. These thunderstorms will likely remain isolated but will be dry, therefore we'll continue to see increases in fire potential for new starts with those conditions. Wetter thunderstorms continue today over eastern Utah, and we do have an increase in winds over central and eastern Utah on Sunday. With the lightning we've seen recently, we could see some holdovers from the wind as we move into Sunday. Otherwise, no significant impacts to fire potential on Monday as dry conditions return. Over the last 24 hours, we did see thunderstorms over mainly Utah into eastern Nevada. These had some good amounts of rainfall, with some areas seeing over a quarter or a half inch of rainfall. Great Basin fire activity over the last 24 hours was moderate initial attack, with 27 new fires reported and over 7,000 new acres, with continued growth on our large fires. Also, of that new fire starts, 4 of those became large fires in the basin. Over the last 7 days, we've had precipitation confined to the southern areas of the Great Basin, and then over the last 2 weeks, generally the southern half of the region, with some areas seeing above normal precipitation. However, in the north, in Idaho and into northern Nevada and northern Utah, we've continued with very dry conditions over the last few weeks. How this has impacted our fuel conditions. ERCs remain above the 80th to 97th percentile over the northern third of the Great Basin, and still remain lower and decreasing with continued thunderstorms over southern areas. Looking at some of the fuel charts, in our drier areas of Idaho into northern Nevada, we are seeing near or at record ERCs for the time of year. We did have some precipitation move through northern Utah that has been dry yesterday, and this brought our ERCs down a little bit. However, we will see drier weather returning, with ERCs climbing back up again through next week. The satellite loop from this morning shows the trough flow pressure off the west coast, with the stronger winds today across Nevada into western Utah, and dry conditions over much of the Great Basin, with the exception of parts of the eastern and southern half of Utah where thunderstorms will continue. With this trough, we will see some cooling temperatures. However, very dry air is in place, so relative humidity will still remain very low despite the cooler temperatures. Now looking at the weather pattern for later this afternoon, again you can see the dry air pushing into western areas with continued thunderstorms in the far east. We do have plenty of high risk for the stronger winds today, with the low relative humidity in areas where fuels continue to be critical over western and northern Nevada into northern Utah. Also, again, this evening into tonight is where we'll see those thunderstorms start to develop over southwest Idaho. Looking at the relative humidity for today, we have single digits across much of Nevada into northern Utah and low teens further north. And you can see the wind picture on the right showing the strongest winds today along the Sierra front into western Nevada, where those gusts will likely increase to above 45 miles per hour. So again, those winds with very dry conditions really increase fire potential. Further east, we'll see gusts between 30 and 35 miles per hour into western Utah. As we move into Sunday, that dry air really pushes across the Great Basin, likely pushing all thunderstorm activity out of Utah, with the exception of the far east. However, with that weak system moving by to the north, we do have some isolated lightning that will continue overnight tonight, Sunday morning, and then redevelop Sunday afternoon as well, mainly affecting the central Idaho mountains. We also have some gusty winds pushing in over eastern Utah, and after the lightning we've seen recently, especially over northeast Utah where fuels are still critical, we could see the potential for some holdovers with those winds. Relative humidity, single digits across much of Nevada into Utah, and also low teens further north. And you can see the wind image on the right showing those gusty winds strongest on Sunday over the eastern half and southern half of Utah. We still do have some breezy northwest winds up across Idaho, with gusts between 25 and 30 miles per hour. On Monday, dry air in place across the Great Basin with no high risk. High pressure over the southwest will start building north, so our winds will decrease region-wide and temperatures will start to climb. On Monday, single-digit to low-teen RHs region-wide, and again, much lighter winds on Monday than what we'll see over the weekend. Forecast amounts of precipitation for the next few days, mainly concentrated to the higher terrain of central and eastern Utah. However, up across Idaho, we may see a few very light raindrops with those drier thunderstorms. However, those thunderstorms will produce very little rainfall. As we move through next week, fairly benign weather for the Great Basin, but the big story will be this strong ridge of high pressure in the south that will continue to build north across the area, keeping very dry conditions, poor overnight recoveries, and temperatures will be climbing to near records by the middle of the week. We don't have any high risk on Tuesday or Wednesday, with again dry air in place, but by Wednesday that ridge really centers itself over the southern two-thirds of the Great Basin, so that our temperatures will start to peak on Wednesday. We'll likely be adding some high risk for hot and dry conditions, considering these temperatures will be near records for the time of year. Hot, dry conditions continue through Thursday, and by Friday we're going to likely see a trough move into the northwest. We'll be watching where thunderstorms start to redevelop out ahead of that trough, but this could be a very critical pattern for parts of northern Nevada into Idaho, depending on how that pattern sets up, especially after a week of very hot and dry conditions. We'll also see some thunderstorms return to southern and eastern Utah, which will also see some drying over the next week. 7-day forecast amount of precipitation is not different from the 3-day, considering we'll be very dry for the latter half of the period. The 8 to 14-day outlook, taking us into the third week of August, shows warm temperatures for the Great Basin and the potential for above normal precipitation, especially over the southern half of the area. But again, this would occur later in the month of August. That concludes our webcast for today. Check back tomorrow for the latest updates.